This is the lecture on verbal communication from Chapter 3. Now, language is what we're using when we talk about verbal communication. That's what we're talking about. So, language is how we verbally convey meaning to one another. And there are a number of different pieces that come together to create meaning. So, we're going to use our syntax, grammar structure, cultural assumptions, relational assumptions. These all come together in a mix and help us create what we think of as language. When we communicate with each other, we are constantly using symbolic language, symbols, and things that on their own they don't have meaning. So like down below, there's an example of all those letters that are jumbled up. And like that, it doesn't mean anything. There's a D, S, A, N, and an H. Like that, it is meaningless. I mean, there's a bunch of letters, but they don't really have a meaning. When we put them together, it creates the word hand, hands. Now, that still doesn't really have a lot of meaning. It's like, oh, hands. Are they my hands? Are they your hands? Are they his hands? And so symbols, they don't give us the full picture. They give us clues, but it's up to us to draw the conclusions to really come up with the meaning of the symbols. And when we use symbols, we use them to express personalities, identities, cultures, and realities. Like that's the way we share them with others. That's the way we transact them, is through symbols. But the symbols themselves aren't what carry the meaning. They assist us in conveying the meaning. An example of this is have you ever tried to give someone specific instructions without them interpreting anything extra from it? Like navigating a maze blindfolded. So if you try to explain navigating a maze to someone blindfolded, you'll quickly discover how much their eyes contribute to them drawing meaning from the words, and how much your gestures and other things that would help them solve a maze, as opposed to only verbally communicating the instructions. Because you can explain to someone, it's like walk 2 steps forward, turn right, but how far right? Is it a quarter turn? Is it half a turn? Is it a full 180 turn? And you'll find yourself using more and more terms to explain and try to fill in the meaning that you would otherwise draw conclusions from other clues when you communicate with someone else. Now, when we talk about meaning of words, there are 2 ways we kind of connect meaning to words. There's the denotative, which is essentially the direct definition. You see a cat, you point out that is a cat. Cat's a cat. Connotative are the way we draw implications and meanings from something. And so an example of a connotative thing might be a sign near a swimming pool that has a little stick figure of a person getting injured when they try to dive into the shallow end of the pool. That might be an example of a sign that has a connotative meaning. So that you draw those meanings from the picture. We share our values through verbal communication. Now, values are an interesting subject because we don't always explicitly say, these are our values and we expect you to do and say these things and not say these other things and act this certain way and don't do this. Values are one of those things that you often don't know what the values are until you've crossed the line or someone's warned you about it. Otherwise, you might be completely oblivious to it. So, as a society, we tend to agree that to use certain words or disapprove, or like we disapprove of using other words. And these aren't a steady thing. They tend to change over time and evolve as society changes. Things that may have been totally fine to say in the past now are offensive. Now that's not something, we don't say that. You might hear someone describe it like that. An example of this is in early America, Native Americans, the term for them that was used was Indians. And now that isn't seen as an offensive term because they're Native Americans. But at one point in U.S. history, Indians was the common term used. And there are a number of examples of this, and I'm sure you can think of them if you put your mind to it. There are all sorts of approved and disapproved terms now when we talk about gender identity. There are ways we talk about that, and there are ways we don't talk about that. There are ways we talk about if someone takes their own life. There's a way we talk about that, and there's ways we do not talk about that. And so values are something that we can generally determine as a society. And as generations come up, we tend to want to challenge those and change them. And over time, they will change as we change as a society. All right. Another factor that's influencing our verbal communication are cultural styles. Now, these are different from our societal values that we hold. Cultural values are a different focus. So some of these that it's easier to see these in a language like Spanish, when different words, different things, they have a masculine form or a feminine form. And it's as simple as an A or an O on the end of the word. And that changes it from becoming a masculine or a feminine word. But in other cultural styles, the way we talk about things, the way we talk about community, the way we talk about ourselves, and the way we describe things is heavily influenced by our culture. Now, when we talk to someone else who's got a different way of communicating, we often go through a phase of what's called accommodation. And there are two main things that happen with accommodations. We're either on a track for convergence, where we're coming together to make our meanings understood, or we're on a path of divergence where we get further and further away from an understanding. Let's talk about Kenneth Burke's pentad. The pentad is a way to analyze the different elements of a story that someone is telling you. When they're talking to you, these are the different parts that will make up a story. And the 5 elements come from different questions. What, where, who, how, and why. Now these in his pentad are described as act, scene, agent, agency, and purpose. And together, these create Burke's pentad, which will help us analyze the stories when someone's talking to us.